Welcome back everybody to BeamNG.drive, and today I figured we'd have a look at the overlap, or at least a small overlap test once again. It's been nearly a year since we did the previous video, so I figured high time, with especially since there's several new cars added to the game via mods or anything like that to try out. So yeah, we're going to give the Ibishu Chisai a go first. It's a rotary version, just so we can get it up to the required 60 miles an hour. So yeah, let's see what this little K car can do. It's small, but it makes a lot of noise. So yeah, this is probably going to be the smallest vehicle that we've tried on this. Going to try on this episode. Bit of a glancing blow there. We'll give it another go, but even so, I survived that fairly well, to be honest. Damage there, so let's try and get a bit more of an overlap on this go. It's take quite a bit of precision to get a proper overlap test. Didn't quite slow the car down quick enough there, but even so, I still think the car has survived fairly well. Obviously, a lot of the bodywork has been damaged, and you're certainly not going to be driving it at home at any speed, but yeah, I think that's gotten away with it fairly well, to be honest, especially given the size of the vehicle, and the fact that it's going 60 miles an hour, which is above the usual speed that cars like this are crash tested at. So yeah, bit of a surprise that it was as good as it was there. Right, let's get on to something different. Let's go for a bolide. We never tried this out in the previous small overlap crash test, so let's see what a sports car or a supercar can do, whichever way you want to call it. Easily achieves its 60 miles an hour. Now this has no engine at the front, so how's it going to perform? Really rather well, I'd say, given there's no engine up there. But then that might have the adverse effect of meaning that the front is completely soft, and therefore is able to absorb the damage rather than transfer the damage into the cabin, which is what generally happens if an engine is impacting a hard surface. The engine does get forced back or forced into the cabin, or ends up transferring the forces into the vehicle. But here, despite its age and the fact there's no engine up front, has done reasonably well. Obviously, no airbag, and yeah, if you're not wearing a seatbelt, you might well suffer a fair few chest injuries. But yeah, slower speeds, you're definitely surviving that. At that speed, it might not be 100% likely, but I'd certainly go in that more than some other cars that we've tried out on this game at some point or another. Right, let's go for, well, we've had a Japanese car, we've had an Italian car, so let's go for something American. Let's go for a D-Series. We've got some old style D-Series on here now from a mod. So let's go for a flatbed with some hay bales on, see if hay bales make any drastic difference to how a vehicle performs. Because obviously they might not look the heaviest of things, but they are weighty. Fortunately, these D-Series do not have the best alignment, so they are fairly difficult to keep in a straight line, to be honest. So we're gonna get a glancing blow. Yeah, just a glancing blow there. Fortunately, right, let's try again. The line up on these vehicles is a little bit iffy. They do like to wander around a fair bit. Being old American trucks, that's no surprise. Oh, we didn't get it lined up again. Let's see what happens anyway. Oh, yeah, the hay bales really add an added danger there. Because not only are you dealing with the impacts at the front, but then the hay bales are still travelling at 60 miles an hour when you crash, and this bar here really isn't enough to stop it from impacting on the cabin, because not only has the cabin been pushed backwards, but it's also been pushed forwards as well. So that, yeah, that is pretty heavy damage there. D-Series still probably works in some regard, being the D-Series and the nigh on invincible, but yeah, that is pretty devastating. Tell how much damage the hay bales have done when they hit the back of the cabin there. Yeah, they definitely added to the danger. But whether or not the D-Series would have been survivable on its own, well, I don't know. Can we pull these off and try? Let's pull these off and see if it's any better, or any more survivable, should I say, without them. See how heavy they are by how much trouble I am of getting them off. Right, that should fall off now. Right, let's see if there's any difference at all. So it seems to wander around a lot less. Yeah, definitely difference. Obviously, it's probably still a highly unlikely chance that you'd survive in the vehicle at those speeds and a vehicle as old as this, but as you can see, the cabin has not been pressurised in two different ways. It's just the front that has taken the damage, whereas the rear has stayed relatively intact, which certainly was not the case with those hay bales. So, yeah, always be wary of not crashing when you have a heavy load on the rear end of your vehicle, because it can make a massive difference in your survivability chances. Right, let's go to one of the safest vehicles on this game, or at least one that is based on one of the safest, because yeah, the Cherrier is easily one of the safest vehicles on this game. So let's go for a coach version, basically a people carrier. So obviously these are much larger than the hatchback or the crossover, which obviously does mean more weight, but does that necessarily mean less survivability? Let's have a look. That's perfect. Barely any damage to the actual cabin. Obviously the vehicle itself has been pretty trashed. Again, you're not going to be walking driving home in it, but you have to say that has taken the crash incredibly well. Why the car is still trying to drive. I've quite clearly turned the cruise control off, but yeah, that is really safe. Obviously some of the cabin has been damaged, but all the important bits are pretty much intact, and the roof has barely moved. The doors look like they're still open. Been a fair bit of damage to the rear door, which I really wasn't expecting, but all that really means is that the energy has been transferred to the outside of the vehicle and around the passengers and driver, rather than through the cabin into the seats, the steering wheel, the pedals and all that lot. So yeah, that is pretty much perfect, to be honest. And yeah, just again goes to show that even any version of the Cherrier is incredibly safe. And to prove that again, let's take a look at the crossover version of the coach, wherever it is. So yeah, this is obviously taller, and 3252, yeah, slightly heavier as well. So can it deal with the body, the chassis, the safety systems deal with an additional extra bit of weight? Let's see. Being taller, it should probably be safer. Yeah, it's a heavy vehicle. Heavier than any other version of the Cherrier. But again, that's pretty much perfect. It's practically the same, to be honest. The engine has survived, but obviously we have lost a wheel. I think that's pretty much the same as the people carrier version, to be honest. Even the rear door there has come away in the same manner. So yeah, despite being heavier than the hatchback or the crossover, this coach crossover is yeah, really impressive, and yeah, just as safe as the lighter, smaller versions, to be honest. Right, let's look at something significantly older. It's another new mod, and it's one of my favourite new mods, in fact, the Burnside Aero Coupe. And two reasons why I really like this. One, I love the classic 40s styling, where aerodynamics really did come into the styling aspects of cars. And also it's got an inline 8 engine, which is certainly not a common engine, not only in terms of today, but in terms of this game as well. I'm struggling to think of any other car that has an inline 8 engine. So yeah, two reasons why I really like it. And plus the Burnside is a pretty fun car to drive and crash as well anyway. So yeah, let's see what this even older version of the Burnside can do, because obviously the Burnside we have is from the 60s, or at least the 50s, whereas this is from the 40s, and yeah, you can tell. Even though this side didn't get impacted, that's still taken damage. The door's popped open, the fender is coming off. This side has been absolutely devastated. The steering wheel is nearly touching the roof. And yeah, it's pretty much where the driver is, so yeah, would not put your chances highly there. Especially given seatbelts weren't mandatory at this time. I don't even think they'd have been invented by the time the 50s had rolled by around. So yeah, even if you were in the back, you would have flown forwards, and there's plenty of room in there to fly forwards into. So yeah, that is pretty devastating. But it is a great mod. It's not the most you know, stable. There's a bit of spike in here, but on the whole, it's a great mod, and it looks absolutely glorious in its 40s styling. So one more car. We'll go slightly newer. We'll go 90s with the Ibishu 200 NX, 92 to 96. We'll go for the 1.8. What's this? Well, the 1.8 will do. That'll certainly get to 60 mile an hour easy enough. So yeah, as you can see, it's got a Targa top, so whether or not that's going to have any difference on how this car handles a crash, we'll have to see. Obviously, the Targa top means very minimal amount of bodywork in between the windscreen and the rear of the car. Yeah, the Targa roof is completely bending. That's not good. Yeah, it's pretty devastating, to be honest. The Targa roof there not proving safe to be safe. Obviously it looks good, and it's nice to have that element to a car, but as far as safety is concerned, yeah, that is pretty bad. But the steering wheel has not moved quite as much as I would have expected, and if there was an airbag and you had your seatbelt on, you might have been okay. But yeah, that is still quite a devastating crash. I'm not sure if there are other versions of this that don't have the Targa roof. I'll just check, because yeah, if they don't, then it'd be interesting to see how they handle it in comparison. Yeah, that has a glass Targa roof, so let's see if this version doesn't have one. See how that... oh, it does. The descriptions on these mods aren't always accurate, as you can see. What about the Aerotech? I think they all do, to be honest. Let's just try a lower version. Or bargain basement. Right, this has metal there instead of glass. Let's see if that makes any difference. Not sure if this is going to be able to be quick enough. Oh, it might be. Yeah, it is. Right, is this going to be any better? Not really, no. I think because even though it's metal, it's still removable. So, yeah. Targa roofs really... it's easy to see why they are no longer around, because, well, that happens really. Don't think I can pull it off, to be honest. No. Well, there we go. Just thought that would be interesting crash test to revisit, because yeah, it is a really rather tough crash test to survive with cars, because it really does test the cars to their limits and generally avoids a lot of the safety protection that they have on offer. Because yeah, it pretty much just goes down the side into the through the wheel into the firewall and then impacts the rest of the car, whereas you know in a frontal impact you have the whole of the front to protect you, whereas with this you only have about what 15-20% of the front providing protection. So yeah, it is quite a devastating crash, but a really fun one to try out as well, and it's interesting to see the differences between older and newer cars, and the likes of the Cherrier and the difference with that compared to the old Burnside Aero Coupe, how much has changed in 50, 60, 70 years. So yeah, there we go. Might well revisit the other crash tests that we've done before with these vehicles or other vehicles that I didn't try out. Give us a shout if you would like to see that, because we did do a rear impact crash test and we also did a side impact crash test. So if you'd like to see more vehicles try out those tests, then give us a shout and I'll see about doing it. But nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.